All right, so when I set this up, I want to make sure that I have them as close as possible together, and so I have a shallow depth of field, because you know, I'm not always sure what I'm going to set that for to. But when I look at the side here, right here is about 1/3 of the way in. Remember what we said about depth of field? How far it extends in front and back? Nobody remembers at all? Yeah. I remembered it, you know. Maybe I said it in my head, I don't know. But it extends 1/3 in front, 2/3 behind. So that's our depth of field. So I want to focus someplace 1/3 of the way in. We have a black background. I have this back here far enough, so I'm hoping that the light doesn't affect it. Now, if the light does hit the background, then I will probably put something here to block it, so that it only goes on the lights on the glass here. So I'm gonna bring this in a little bit closer, and I'm gonna raise the light up so that the middle part of the light is at the middle part of these containers here. And I want them at about a 90-degree angle is what I'm looking for. But that may be adjusted here in a little bit. And the other thing too is that I want them about the same distance away from here to here. So I want that to be pretty close to about the same. And then I'm going to adjust them so that they are the same intensity. So I'm going to bring them both down to 1/32 because that's the lowest setting we have on these, and that seemed to work last time. So what you're looking for is, I can see that I have a very solid line here and here on these, and the angle of this may not make much of a difference actually. Let's see. So I'm going to bring this around a little bit. I want this bright spot to at least be on the edges. See, like here, this one is perfectly on the edges. This one is fairly close to the edge. And try a live view here. No, I'll just adjust it back. So I set up my live view so I can focus here and get it set the way that where I want it to be. So first thing I'm going to do is zoom in, and I'm going to start setting my focus, which I have there, and adjust my camera a little bit. Okay, so the main reason I have the live focus, not only to, or live view so I can focus, but also I can clearly see where the light's reflecting off of the containers there. So this one's pretty close. I'm going to have to go back a little bit more, I think, on that one. So unfortunately, with the reflection on here, as I move this back, this reflection comes forward. So I'm just going to have to sort of figure out how much damage I want to do on both sides. So it's a give and take, because you have two reflection points on each of these. This is reflecting this light, and this light can actually go through and hit part of this side, and this one's going to hit this side, and same way on the other one. Now this one's relatively easy because it's perfectly round. It's just a straight cylindrical tube, so it's relatively easy to photograph. So that's something to remember when you pick out your lighting stuff. As we get more of an angle, it gives us a compound angle there, and it makes it a little bit more difficult to light it up completely. But I think that's pretty close to where I could work with. And we'll just take a shot and see what it looks like. So I'm going to adjust this back up to 200 and get it off that. And actually, that looks pretty darn good. Yeah. So I can darken that up a little bit. I have my blinkies on, basically my highlight alerts, which basically it tells you that your camera is overexposing in the highlights. It's a highlight warning. And so they flash. So those of you can see it back there, you can see it flash on the bright spots there. So I can knock it down a little bit more if I wanted to, which I think I am going to do. So I'm going from 5.6, I'm going to go up to 8 and take another shot with it. And now it doesn't blink nearly as much. As a matter of fact, I didn't see it blink at all on that one. So yeah, so now I have my highlights there, and I want to see my gradients. I can see pretty good. I think the other picture I liked better actually, with the brighter lights. Yeah, because my numbers here, my gradients here, the graduate numbers here show up much more with a little bit brighter. So I'm going to go back to the other one, to the 5.6, and shoot that. Oops, I moved that. There we go. I actually moved my shutter, so I got past my flash sync and I started to get some side pieces in, some shadows on the side. It's all right, so I want to move that over, I think, just a tiny bit. Like right there. All right, so that looks pretty good. Now, when we use these particular softboxes, we have a very hard line on the lights. So one of the little tricks we can do is we can soften that light as it comes forward. So in other words, instead of it being a hard bar coming across here, I want to make it more of a gradient. So I want the hard bar to start at the back and come as more of a gradient towards the front. So the way that we do that is with these little things here. And if I can hopefully set these up without breaking anything. This may or may not work. So what I'm doing is I'm putting another diffuser in front of this. So again, I showed you that the soft boxes have one diffuser inside, and I'm actually putting another one inside in front of it. And what this one is going to do is this is going to control the light for me. Yeah, oh, that's what I want to do. Yeah, technical stuff, it's difficult for me. Oh, make sure I don't. I know, huh? It's pretty scary, pretty scary. All right, so loosen up that. I want to make it parallel with it. There you go, just like that. Go ahead and tighten it up, yep. There we go. Okay, so, and that needs to go. There we go. All right, so the way that we create a sharp line and a gradient is by adjusting the light so that it hits this at an angle. So now if you look here, you can see that we have a very solid line and it fades out that direction. And if you look on the side of the bottle, you see that now, instead of it being such a hard line that it was before, we have a sharp line here and it fades towards the front. Hopefully, I don't know if you guys can see that at this point or not, but that's what we will have. And let me adjust this. So most of your time in the studio is literally spent setting up stuff. Once you get it all set up and metered, it pretty much goes pretty fast after that. So let's just see how close I am on that. Yeah, so now all of my bottles, they have a sharp line at the end and graduate towards the front. So what I can do is I'm going to even switch that around and have it a sharp line in the front graduating towards the sides, see if that looks better. Now my thinking is going to look better gradiated towards the front, from the back sharp towards the front gradiated, but I could be wrong. So while you have everything set up here, it's well worth it to take a couple extra moments to try it another way. And don't trip over it and break everything.
Die.
I know, huh? You know, it doesn't matter how big your studio is, it always seems crowded once you get everything set up in it. Let's see. Actually, that's not too bad there either. I'm adjust my f-stop a little bit, just to make it a tiny bit darker. Not quite a stop, about a third of a stop. And I'm scrolling through to look at the different lights and see which one I like better. Yeah, so the gradient one, this one I think looks almost identical to the other one, because when it radiates out to the side, we don't see it, so we see that hard light there. So I think it's going to look better this direction. Now as you start creating more of an angle there, the diffusion is going to be coming from here. It's going to diffuse quite rapidly now, and hopefully go a little bit darker, or fade out. Yeah, it faded out quite a bit. As a matter of fact, that diffusion on that one is almost, you can't even see it on that side. So I'm going to adjust this a tiny bit. Now it's really large. So sometimes it's just a matter of minute adjusting to get it to where you want it to get. Now, in all honesty, if you guys shoot it with the hard lines on both sides, that would be perfect. I mean, I have no problem with that. The other thing you can do is you can look at the picture and you can decide that, okay, this has a lot of area on it that lights up. And so that may not be the best one to have on the side. Like, we might be better off just adjusting these around and see if that's a better picture, which is what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to take this big one and put it in the center there. Now, I don't know if that's going to look any better or not, but I'm just wasting data space right here. And it actually does, because now my lighting, it was coming quite a ways in front of this one, and now it's pretty even on this side, even on this side, and this one, and that one. So, the other thing you can do is you can also take and adjust this light so that the gradient part right here is running right down the middle of these. So when I look from the side here, let's see if I can get that in there. I want to bring these lights a little further back. So what I'm doing is I'm putting the edges of these further back. Let's go much further back. On my lighting surfaces. So what will that do when I bring these edges further back? Anything? Nothing, really?
You have a sharp line at the back.
Yeah, what I'm trying to do is, instead of having my glasses are like this, and so my lines are on the side right here at about a 45 because they spill over. So my thinking is, as I move this light further and further back, I'm getting more towards the edges, more towards the look that we get off the light background. So I will take this shot here. And I can see that it definitely has worked. See, I got it right. But right now, when you look at it, for those of you who were able to see it before, you saw a much wider line on both sides. And so now it's much thinner. So if I even move a little bit further back, I might create the same thing. Now, we have to do this with these diffusion panels in front of it. If you do it with just this, what happens is the light starts wrapping around the back, and it just it lights up the back part of it. So I'm just actually going to turn it a little bit towards the back. So what I'm doing is I'm actually angling the light off of these diffusers, these solid diffusers here, so that when the diffuser lights up, it's really bright here and it radiates off back there. So that way it's going to light up less behind the bottle. And my objective here is to make the edge of these bottles a nice solid line. And that worked exactly what I wanted to do. So now I have thin lines on there. So now this looks almost identical to this one, except this is the dark field background, and that's the bright field background. And that's pretty much what you want to do. Now, you don't have to do all these. You don't have to use all these over here. You can if you want. But the main objective on both these assignments, or this assignment, is that these have to be on the dark field, and you have to put lights on each side of it. You have to outline the glass with light because you have a black background that's showing through. There's no light coming through. So on that side, because you have light coming through, it's all white and it automatically becomes black on the edge. So that one is pretty easy. The bright field or the white field background is relatively easy to do. And that's the same way when you're shooting product photography. If you have glass on a lighter background, it's much easier to light up than it is on a darker background. It takes a little bit more work and a little bit more finesse with the lighting. This right here is just a good way of taking the light and making it gradiate off into the product. So like if I was shooting a Coke bottle or a bottle of beer or something like that with stuff in it, the main thing that I'm worried about is the light that's on the glass, how that looks in the picture. And by having it gradiate one way or the other, and most of the time it's from the back towards the front, it makes the product look much, much better than it would if we didn't use these at all and just use two side soft boxes. All right? So in this assignment, you're worried about the angle of light. The angle of light you want to reflect off the side of the containers on both them. You just have to approach it differently depending on what the background is. When it's a light background, relatively easy, it automatically takes care of itself because light can't go through the thicker part of the glass. When you go to the dark background, we have to light up the edge. If I just turn these off and just shoot it, it would just all be black because obviously there'd be no light coming from the edge, there'd be no light or no darkness coming through this part here and here. You might be able to see some of this maybe, but we'd lose the whole definition of the glass. And now we have it once we light up the edges. The thing you want to make sure is not to have these lights come too far forward and you get this big glare all across the front of them. You're trying to avoid that if you can. You're trying to control the light so it's a narrow strip on there. And the more complicated your glass is, the more complicated it's going to be. When you get to that booth there, you got two different light angles. You got the side, then it rotates into up and down. So you're going to have a little bit harder time lighting that up. And it may not be too bad, but it's totally different than lighting up something like this. It's relatively simple, a little bit more complicated. If we use the other beaker over there with the round bottom, that would really be a lot of fun to light up on that one. Any questions? Thoughts, ideas? Yeah.
I have a question. Now, would you be able, can you duplicate this with constant light source?
Yes, you could. We just have to turn off this light right here. As a matter of fact, go ahead and turn that light off. Turn that off over there. And then what?
Both of them?
Other one. Go up. There you go. Yeah, up there. It just has to be opposite. So if I have a constant light source now, all I have to do is I will disconnect this, and let me. I'm definitely going to have to open up more. So let me adjust that down until I get it to where I want it. A little bit more. So here's a constant light source, and you can see that's almost identical. The direction of the light, and all I'm doing here now in this case, because the constant light source. When I slow down my shutter speed, it is going to affect it because that's ambient light on there right now. So all I'm doing is using the model lights. So as I make this, you can see how long this is now, exposure. So there you go. So that's producing almost identical, not quite the same, but it's pretty close. The lighting is still going to be, oops, wrong one. The lighting is still going to be, you notice that the lighting is a little bit more on the orange, more towards the warmer side, and that's because we're dealing with model lights that aren't daylight balanced. Those are tungsten balanced. So yeah, so constant light, you can actually do something. Go ahead and turn the lights back on, please. So if you have lights at home, you can do this without having to use flash. And the nice thing about it is because this is not moving at all, you don't have to worry about how slow of a shutter speed you have. I think this one was what? This one was a 4-second shutter speed. And I just left the f-stop at 7.1. So all I did was just give it a longer exposure through the shutter. Oops, sorry. Any other questions? Good question. No? Yes?
We can change it to black and white and color, like, does that matter?
Yes, you can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's better to shoot it in color and change it to black and white afterwards, because then you always have the color if you want later on. Like, for a while you might go through a black and white phase where you always say, oh, everything looks so good in black and white. And then, then after a while you get sick of it, and you go, man, I wish I had that in color. Well, if you shoot it in black and white here, it saves it to the card in black and white. But if you shoot it in color here, once you get into Photoshop, you can change it to black and white, and you can always change it back to color, and you don't have to worry about losing anything.
Okay, what's the rule on the materials that we can use?
Well, we're gonna have these here, basically, and this one's just a black and a white
No,
background.
the glassware.
Well, no paraphernalia, so, don't bring your bong in. No glass weapons, no, suggestive glass things, I guess I could say. So, but other than that, there is no, the main thing is you want to have, this has a little bit of etching on it, but not much, it's mainly glass. And that's what you want, is you want to have it mostly glass so that you can see through it. Now, I think your boot had a little symbol on there, a little logo, yeah. And that's okay, but it's mostly the glass that we're looking at on
Okay,
there.
no liquid or anything inside?
No, on this one, no liquid on this one. Now, later on, we'll do something with liquid in it, but.
But we can have props on the outside.
Correct. Yeah, you can put anything you want down here, do anything else you want there, that's no problem at all.
Okay.
You can play around with that. But the thing to remember is that when you put this stuff down here, what I'd recommend you do is shoot the glassware by itself. Get that shot. Because that way you've concentrated on lighting the glass and you've concentrated on just getting that right. And then you're going to throw this other stuff down there and just take the shot. Don't worry about lighting that up so much. In this assignment, you wouldn't worry about lighting that up so much. Now, if I was doing a product shot where I had to have some, like I could put colored liquid in here and different things like that, then I would, concentrate on lighting all of that stuff up too, because that would require some separate lighting inserted into it to light that up correctly. Because your lighting right now is just concentrating on just making these marks on the edge of the glass. Once I put this down here, it's going to be rather harsh lighting on it. Like if I put some flowers or some rocks or something down there, it would be kind of harsh on it. Somebody else?
So if I wanted to bring an empty glass bottle, is that not okay?
An empty glass bottle?
Wine bottle, I'm sorry.
As long as it's empty.
Okay.
And I don't want you drinking it, finishing off outside of class either.
It's already gone.
Okay, as long as it's all gone and it's cleaned out, that's fine.
Okay.
That's no problem. Yeah, we had some people, before do wine bottle, because some of the nicest bottles really are, alcohol bottles. They really, spend some money on
I
that.
got 1 million of them in my kitchen, so.
You have 1 million of them. So then you probably want to maybe check about your problem of drinking, that might be encouraged at this point if you have 1 million bottles. If you had it all set up and you put this on, you took a shot and it looked great, it wouldn't matter to me. It should great. If you get it one and done, then you're good. Steven lives by that rule when he's shooting films. One and done. He lives by that rule. It's at 3 in the morning. Cold mornings. Any other questions?
Sure.
All right, let's go back in there and we'll talk a little bit more. And if you guys want, you can go ahead and get your cameras and come over here and play a little bit. That would be fine.